Just to say, if you're going to be here, then you should learn the language of the country that you just arrived at. It's been over 10 years since I spoke to a slightly larger crowd. When I was running for president, I'm as excited as I have been ever.
I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat.
Don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from.
So thank you very much, everybody.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. Muscular Christianity, where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome to a brand new week of broadcasting on the American Family Radio. I am Brian Fisher, your congenial, convivial, amiable, and effervescent host.
As always.
And
sometimes absent.
Sometimes absent. Yeah. I was away last Thursday and Friday speaking at an AFR donor event in Little Rock, Arkansas, with the invitation-only event for some of our most faithful supporters there. And I had a great evening, over 200 people there in the room. A lot of energy in the room. Felt a lot of support from those that were there. So very much appreciate their support and their faithful giving. Jeff, could you grab me one of those listener stories sheets if you can? Yeah. And we have our share-a-thon coming up. Speaking of faithful AFR supporters, we want to know that you've got a chance to contribute to our share-a-thon by sharing your testimony with us, your story about how AFR, Focal Point, or AFR in general, has affected you. So I want you to make a note of this, that if we, Focal Point or American Family Radio, has made a difference in your life, if we've given you the right information at the right time, we'd love to hear your AFR story. Be a blessing and an encouragement to others. So call and just share your story. It'll be recorded and we could use it. The number to call the listener storyline is 877-876-8893, 877-876-8893. And by the way, I think, Jeff, I think Ann told you this story, but speaking of listeners, heard from a listener just yesterday via Ann Reed, Jeff's wife, that there are listeners out there that really enjoy the interaction between you, Jeff, and Rob, and me. They get a kick out of it.
Yeah, they do. While you were gone, we did miss you, but Walker, we were able to cover you. Walker has your smarts. Brian has Rob has your heart and compassion, and I have your sarcasm. So between the three of us, we got you covered.
Mix.
What more do you need, right?
Yeah.
We need
mix.
Brian Fisher.
Yeah.
You know what? Before you get into too much right here, we've got an emergency caller that's called in, been waiting for you to come on the air. It says it's going by Grumpy Cat, but the name on the call screen software says Buddy.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this?
I don't know. This is a surprise to me.
All right, might as well hear it.
Oh, it's your birthday again. Yeah, so what am I supposed to do here? Am I supposed to sing happy birthday to you every time it's your birthday? All right, fine, this is it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. All right?
Yeah. I think Emma's more the grumpy one in our house. So probably,
okay.
but that was obviously from a male cat, so it could have been Buddy, just in a bad mood. And he's usually a pretty upbeat kind of guy, but he might have had an off day, and who knows?
You must have forgot to give him his treat this morning.
Well, I did, as a matter of fact. Debbie had the cover for me today with Emma and with Buddy.
Explains everything. I think Debbie put him up to it.
Yeah, must be it. I was running late for work today. Normally what I do is, this is completely irrelevant as a waste of airspace, but when I get up in the morning, Emma always wants me to comb her and give her treats. It's just like a regular routine. But I always tell her, no, we have to do chores first because this is a working ranch. I say, Emma, this is not a dude ranch. This is a working ranch. We have to do chores first. So she has to follow me over to the back door where I unlock the back door, I unlock the deadbolt, and I turn off the alarm. Yeah. And then we can go get our little treat. Well, today I was too late for everything, so Debbie had to feed him and do the whole thing, which means now, I mean, I haven't, Debbie is Emma's favorite and is JD's and Buddy's favorite.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite. Nobody likes me. So now it's just only worse. Because that used to be the thing I could do with them. I could at least give them their treats. In the morning and the last thing at night, I'm the one that gives them their treats. So when I give them their treats, I always say, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? But maybe I'm even losing that now.
You know, where somewhere lost in all that was, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Brian.
Somewhere
Happy
there,
birthday.
yeah.
Well, you know, quite honestly, a few years back, we had quite a scare with you. And so every time you have a birthday, it takes on a new meaning. Now it's like lanyap and extra that the Lord has given us, and really appreciate you. Happy birthday.
Great. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Rob. One of the great delights of my life is working with you guys to do this program.
And I have to say, I see how Buddy interacts with you when I'm over visiting.
Mm-hmm.
He loves you. That cat is your cat, and you don't know it.
He's my little buddy.
All right, we have focal points sometime today, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Scripture prayer.
Spoken like the executive producer. Yes. All right. Well, we're going to turn our attention to the Word of God to begin the program as we customarily do today. I'm not really going to do much exposition on this. It's Psalm 115 because the whole thing is a prayer. So the best thing we can do is not take a lot of time with the psalm and just go to the prayer. I mean, it is a prayer. So when I wrote this up as a prayer, I almost didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, it just writes itself as a prayer. But there's one thing I wanted to point out. What God says in Psalm 115, down in verse, let's see if I can find the right verse here. He says in verse 16, the heavens are the Lord's heavens, but the earth he has given to the children of man. Let me read that again. The heavens are the Lord's heavens, but the earth he has given to the sons of man, the children of man. So that's you and me. So he says, look, the heavens belong to me. I'm in charge in the heavens. I created the earth, but I gave it to you as a gift. So notice what God is saying. One of the greatest gifts that I have given to you as my children, my sons, is the earth. The earth and all that is in it I have given to you to bring forth fruit, to bring forth grain so that you can eat, to raise animals so that you can enjoy steaks and hamburgers and all that. I've given the earth to you. Now you need to take care of it. You can't abuse it, but it's there for our use. Which means that when we raise animals and we are able to benefit from their companionship, from them being around, I mean, animals are great. That's God's gift to us. And we don't have to worry about staying away from any kind of environmental interaction. You know, on the left treats the earth as something that is sacred. And if you touch it, you have committed an act of blasphemy. Have you ever noticed that? The left worships Gaia with a capital G. That's their idol. That's their God. And realize if earth is their God, then every time we interact with it, from a leftist standpoint, we are defacing Gaia. We're defacing their God. We're committing an act of sacrilege and an act of blasphemy. And God says, no, don't listen to those folks. They don't know what they're talking about. They may have a lot of passion, a lot of conviction. But I have given the earth to you to use for your benefit, to use for your needs, to build homes, to raise families, to start careers, all that kind of stuff. You know, and farmers know as well as anyone that if the earth is going to reward your effort, you have to take care of it. You know, farmers learn that you can farm out a piece of farmland. That's one of the reasons they rotate crops, because it enables you to grow different crops and preserves the fertility of the land. All right, well, let's go to our prayer today for Psalm 115, if you would be kind enough to join me. Lord God, we worship you this day as the God who is in heaven and does whatever pleases you. The highest heavens belong to you, and we bless you both now and forevermore. We pray that all glory will not be to us, but to your name because of your steadfast love and faithfulness. I bring myself and my family, Jeff and Rob and their families, the listening audience of Focal Point, everyone right now within the sound of my voice and their families. Bring us all before you in the name of Jesus. Pray for every man, woman, and child in this land. I pray for our mayors, for our governors today, and for our president, President Trump. And I pray that you will cause us all to fear you and trust you this day as our help and our shield. We pray that you'll remember us and bless us, small and great alike. Free us from idolatry and all of its forms, that we may not trust in anything or anyone but you. We ask you out of your steadfast love to give increase to both us and to our children. May we be blessed by you, the maker of heaven and earth. Amen.
Amen.
You know, one of the things in here, too, that I think is pretty significant to observe is the prayer that the psalmist offers to God, that we would be blessed by God, that we would know him. You know, I came across a story today that's actually a pretty telling story. It actually was in the Daily Mail, which is a newspaper in the UK. And if you want to know why every day is a National Day of Prayer here at Focal Point, here is the reason. According to the Daily Mail, this was a new survey that was done by the General Social Survey. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but the Daily Mail, one of the biggest newspapers in the UK, and they say this: the number of Americans who identify as having no religion, get ready for this, has risen 266% since 1991. So that's in less than 3 decades. The number of Americans who have no religious faith, express no belief in God, no trust in God, no commitment to God, has risen by 266%. There are 23.1% of the American population that have no religious affiliation or attachment whatsoever. Catholics are 23% of the population, evangelicals 22.5%. So notice that the biggest, if you want to use the term religious in a very loose sense, the biggest religious group in America are the people who have no religious faith at all. So you want to know why every day is a National Day of Prayer at Focal Point American Family Radio. This is it right here. And that is just, you know, it just presents the crying need that we have to work and labor for revival. You know, and we're losing our religious liberty. If we're not careful, it'll all be gone. Here's a story about a senior citizen home in Michigan. And they have prohibited 2 of its residents from explaining the meaning of Christmas to visiting children. One of the things that the senior home does is they give residents an opportunity to read Christmas-themed stories to the children that come and visit. Now, when one of the children asked, well, one of the readers asked the children if they knew what the meaning of Christmas is, she got stopped. One of the teachers interrupted, abruptly silenced her. You can't talk about that. Another one tried to summarize the Charlie Brown Christmas to the children. She was interrupted by a teacher. These are students that have been brought from a nearby school to visit the residents of this home. So their constitutional rights of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, grossly violated. Our good friends at the Alliance Defending Freedom are on the case. Ted Cruz going after Yale Law School. I'll explain why when we come back. You're listening to Focal Point on the American Family Radio Network. Be right back.
For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Look briefly at one of your fingers. You've just witnessed one of the greatest displays of God's creative intent there is. No other person in all the world, even an identical twin, shares your fingerprint. God specifically designed each of us to be unique. That means we shouldn't try to carbon copy anyone else in the Christian faith. If God made you an arm in his body or a kneecap, praise be to our glorious God for drawing us to become a part of his body. How freeing it is to realize that we were never meant to copy anyone but Jesus.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Dr. Richard Land, President of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. The 2016 presidential election has proved to be a pivotal one in our history. In November 2016, 70% of Americans believed the country was on the wrong track. Now, 44% believe the country's on the right track, a positive increase of 14%. A poll taken by the Associated Press and NORC found that 7 out of 10 Americans still think that America is in danger of losing her national identity. That is, quote, the beliefs and values the country represents, end quote. Then the survey went on to say 57% of Americans say the United States should be a country with an essential culture that immigrants adopt when they arrive. So there is a real tension among our citizenry about those who have recently come to our shores. The research found that, quote, respondents value a fair judicial system and the rule of law the most, cited by 88% of Americans, followed by individual freedoms defined by the Constitution, cited by 84%. It went on to say that the sheer use of the English language was in third place, cited by 73%. So, an overwhelming majority of Americans, 88%, 84%, 73%, believe that there are core elements in American culture that everyone who wants to live in this country should embrace: the rule of law, the Bill of Rights, and speaking the English language. This is what the vast majority of Americans mean by the melting pot. Notice none of these core values are racial or ethnic: the rule of law, the Bill of Rights, and the English language. There's a lot of room for people who want to come to this country and embrace the American ideal as defined by those core values. In fact, anyone who does so can become an American, whatever their ethnic or national background. That's the genius of America. More about this tomorrow. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. And that seems to be what some of the listeners appreciate, guys, is that they hear three guys, two of whom at least, you and Rob, are muscular guys, masculine guys, hear us kind of teasing each other and, kind of kicking stuff around like guys do. And I think they like that.
Yeah, kind of be part of the Big Brain Mammal Club. And you know what it really is? I think a lot of people appreciate that there's a group of guys that love God and that aren't afraid to be men in the biblical sense of the word, and they have a good time doing it. You know, we tackle some very difficult and very hard-hitting topics and news stories, but just find a way to rise above it, and that only comes through Christ. Mm-hmm. We know that, but I think it gives a lot of people that are being told in our culture that they can't act that way, it gives them permission to say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to be a man in the modern world.
Yeah, or people think that, being a Christian means you've got to be like a Mr. Grumpy Cat all the time.
Yeah.
Dour and don't enjoy life and have no fun and have no sense of humor and
that doesn't happen here.
No.
I mean, if we could get a camera on during some of the breaks, they would realize we have a lot more fun than you here.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Big Brain Mammal Club, I don't know if you know, this goes back to a story that I read that big-brained mammals take longer, go extinct shorter. No, they last longer. They live longer.
Yeah.
The big brain mammals, the evolutionary big brain mammals, will last longer than the small brain mammals. And so I read that story, and I came on air and I said, I just want you guys to know that I got a lot more to worry about than Jeff and Rob, because they are big-brained mammals, so they're going to last a whole lot longer than I am. I'm a small-brain mammal. I'm going out of extinction. These guys will still be trucking along.
You know, when you first gave us that nickname, we took it as a compliment. You really got us.
And it sort of changed.
Yeah.
Well, and we've decided if we ever form a band, it's going to be the Big Brain Mammals. That's who we will be. As long as I get to be the lead singer now.
Oh, okay.
And as long as we do all 50s and 60s stuff, then I'm good with that.
One of the things I'd like to just add, and then I'll get out and we'll get on with the program, is that I had one of the church services I was preaching at. I had one of the parishioners say, "Why is everybody sitting around with the frowns on their face? We're children of the Most High God, and why would you sit around and be stoic and with a frown on your face when you know what you are?"
Yeah, we ought to be the happiest people in the room. Yep. Okay, a couple of other stories from the front lines of the culture war. Mentioned that one from the senior citizens home where a school, and good for the school. I think what the school is trying to do is good for everybody, good for a mixture of the generations. The young students get to go and they bring some life and energy and cheer to the residents. The residents are reading them stories, so the children to get the benefit. And these teachers from the local school said, look, you can't tell them what Christmas means. You can ask them the question or they can ask you. You just cannot answer it. You can't explain the meaning of Charlie Brown Christmas and all that kind of stuff. By the way, I got a text message from Senator Jason Rapert from Arkansas. He's been a frequent guest on this program, and I will talk to our president, Tim Wildman, after the show. But I think you probably remember, I think this goes back a week, I was talking to you about the fact that Walmart had 440 satanic items on their website. Walmart, 440 satanic items on their website. Now, Senator Rapert is in Arkansas, which is where Walmart is headquartered. And Senator Rapert said he called Walmart headquarters and he demanded that they take down all of the satanic merchandise on their website. He said they sent me word that they have complied with my request. So that would be a real winnable war moment. We'll need to get, confirmation that they're just not saying that in hopes that everybody will forget about it and go away. We'll confirm that with what's on their website, but that could be our winnable war moment for today. All right. And again, I want to make clear when I talk about this next story, my complaint with our education system is not with teachers. I want everybody to understand that I have no beef with teachers themselves. My beef is with teachers' unions. And this is what I'm talking about. There's a bill that's being introduced in Rhode Island, and it is a bill that would make sex between school employees and students a crime, even after the students have turned 16, which is the legal age of consent in Rhode Island. So it would make sex between teachers and their students a crime. Both teachers' unions, National Education Association, and the United Federation of Teachers, they testified against this bill. They want teachers to be able to have sex with their students. Wow. So now you understand why my beef is not with teachers. My beef is with the teachers' unions and their agenda. In Sweden, speaking of schools, they got, Jeff, did you want to
before we went to break, you were talking about Ted Cruz going after Yale. I've been anxiously awaiting that.
Yeah, and then I completely dropped the story. Yeah, it's all part of the religious liberty theme that I wanted to introduce the program with today. Now, Yale University was started, I think, toward the end of the 18th century basically as a seminary. It was designed to equip literate pastors to fill the pulpits of New England. There was apparently some theological drift that was detectable at Harvard, some theological drift they'd already been able to detect at Princeton Seminary. So Yale was going to be started to give their attendees, their students who are preparing for the ministry, the straight scoop, honor the authority, the accuracy, the inerrancy, and the infallibility of the Scriptures. That's why Yale started. So it was designed to be a seminary to train men for ministry. Now they've branched out, of course. So they've got the undergraduate program. They've got their law school. And now the law school, this is at a school that started to train conservative Christians for the ministry. They have adopted a transparently discriminatory policy that Yale Law School will no longer provide any stipends or loan repayments for students who serve in organizations that profess traditional Christian views or adhere to traditional sexual ethics. Now, some of these law students, of course, they like to do internships at places like Alliance Defending Freedom. Because what are they doing? They are an alliance that's doing what? Defending freedom, particularly the First Amendment and freedom of religion. So they're going to want to do an internship at ADF and learn how it's done so they can become warriors on the cultural battlefield and defend religious liberty from a constitutional standpoint. And Yale says, well, you do that, fine, it's on your own dime. We're going to give stipends to other students to go and do similar internships. We'll give them stipends. But if you're going to a place that honors the moral values of Christianity, forget about it. You're not getting a dime from us. And what happened, it was LGBTQ students on campus that objected to the fact that Yale was offering stipends to students who did internships with ADF. And this whole thing was started when an attorney for ADF came and spoke on campus. And that started this whole ruckus, which led to the offer of stipends being taken away from Christian students. And Ted Cruz is going to fight the good fight and challenge that. You know, Yale gets billions of dollars in federal research money. And I think those that have suggested that the first thing that ought to happen, you know, Donald Trump has said, look, he issued this executive order that colleges have to honor freedom of speech. And if they don't, they're going to start losing their federal subsidies, federal stipends. You know, because these leading universities, you know, the major research universities, the Ivy League schools, they literally get billions of dollars every year from the federal government. And Donald Trump says no more. If you're not going to honor freedom of speech, if you're not going to honor freedom of association, if you're not going to honor freedom of religious expression on your campuses, no more money from us. That money is coming from us. It's our money. We can decide what to do with it, and we're not going to give it to you if you continue to discriminate against people. Now, by the way, this is way down the road. I have no idea what the landscape is going to be like in 2024. And I'm assuming for the sake of argument that Donald Trump is going to run again in 2020. If he does run again, I believe he will be elected. I just don't see anybody right now in the Democratic Party, the big boat of Democrat candidates that can defeat Trump one-on-one. But anyway, we need to be thinking ahead to 2024. And unless somebody that I don't know about pops up on the radar, I think we need to start thinking about Ted Cruz for 2024 as a potential candidate. Because we need somebody that knows how to take on the left-wing tyrants when it comes to the sexual agenda, when it comes to religious liberty, and take them on toe-to-toe and stand up to them and defeat them. And Cruz is the guy that has the convictions to do it, and he has the ability to do it. You know, he's a national champion debater, so he knows how to do it. He can go toe-to-toe with these people, and he can out-argue them on their own premises. So anyway, we've got to have somebody like that. We were talking this morning, a few of us here around here, about the advance of the extreme left-wing agenda, the LGBT agenda in this country. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we are just one Supreme Court justice, maybe two away from losing everything, and we may be one election away from losing everything. You know, if the Democrats get the House in 2020, and if they were by chance to get the White House in 2020, rather the Senate, if they wind up controlling the House, keeping the House, taking control of the Senate, taking control of the Oval Office, you can kiss goodbye. I mean this, ladies and gentlemen. This country, as we know it, will be over the day after the election. Everything that we cherish, everything that we value, starting with religious liberty and a profound sense of moral ethics, that all is going to be gone. It'll be trashed. It'll be shredded. It'll be illegal even to believe any of those things any longer. So we need somebody who can stand up to that. Now, give an example of how it's going in Europe. In Sweden, you know, Sweden has a national church. And this is an example of why our founding fathers were against the national church. I'm with them on that. I don't think an established church at the national level is a good idea. In fact, it's not even a good idea at the state level. You know, 10 of the 13 original states had established churches at the state level. It's still today not unconstitutional for a state to have an established church as the official state religion. That's the official one in law. People have to pay taxes to it and all that. Would not be unconstitutional. Bad idea, but they still could do it. Here's what the Swedish churches do. The National Church in Sweden is distributing an LGBTQ guide to their churches that identifies Jesus as queer, that's their term, and says that Joseph in the Old Testament was a transvestite. Maybe because he wore that brightly colored robe. I don't know what their argument for that is. But that's the Church of Sweden and where they're going. So anyway, that's where the church in America is headed, unless we stand up to it. Even the Southern Baptists are leaning in that direction. They're showing a little bit of I don't know, a willingness to maneuver and move toward the left side of the sexual ethics platform. And here, another story from Sweden. Here's a father in Sweden who fled to Poland. You know why he fled to Poland? Is after his children were taken away from him and placed in the custody of a Muslim foster family that lived 300 miles away. So he took his children and he fled for refuge to Poland. I mean, who could imagine a time after World War II when you would want to flee Sweden and go for refuge and freedom to Poland? But you know, Poland is the only one of the few countries in Europe that hasn't had any kind of terrorism activity. You know why? They don't have any Muslims. Muslims can't immigrate into Poland. That's why this guy went there. He wants to go to a place where his children can't be snatched from him and put in the custody of people that worship the demon god Allah. And this thing has become kind of an international scandal because of the ruckus that this father raised. Good for him. This guy had come to Sweden 7 years ago. His wife fell ill in 2017, and the Swedish social services took his children away from him on the grounds that he did not have full employment, wasn't going to be able to take care of his kids. So we're going to put your kids in a home where they can be taken care of, and it happened to be a Muslim home 300 miles away, and he got 6 hours a week to see them. And the parents here had no chance to defend their rights. The girls didn't want to stay in this foster home. They had parents that loved them and cared for them. They wanted to go home. And the whole thing went on for about a year. They were in this foster Muslim family for a year. And he finally took his children, decided he'd return to Russia. He was stopped at the Warsaw airport, and he applied instead for asylum in Poland. In other words, the Swedish authorities caught up to him in the airport in Warsaw, Poland, as he was leaving for Russia, and they were going to stop him, take him back to Sweden. He applied for asylum, and thank God Poland granted him asylum for him and for his family. Louis Farrakhan up to his old tricks. I don't know if you saw this over the weekend. He claims, now this is classic Muslim theology here. Remember, he's Nation of Islam guy. So that's he's basically a Muslim by belief and conviction and so forth. But he said this is a quote, "God does not love this world," which of course is a flat contradiction to John 3:16. For God so loved the world, the same world that Farrakhan's talking about, he gave his only begotten Son that whoever believes in him might not perish but have eternal life. Farrakhan says God does not love this world. God never sent Jesus to die for this world. Jesus died because he was 2,000 years too soon to bring about the end of the civilization of the Jews. Oh, wow. He was never on no cross. There was no Calvary for that Jesus. He has this weird story about how Christ was crucified, not crucified, but killed in front of a Jewish store. Anyway, we'll finish the story on the other side of the break. Focal Point, American Family Radio.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
Most patients have no idea how their doctors are paid and thus may not see the conflict of interest. They don't know how government payment strategies may encourage their doctors to give them less care or discharge them too early from the hospital. The Affordable Care Act includes an experiment in payment called Medicare Bundled Payments. Participating doctors and hospitals are paid per episode, for example, for all the care surrounding a heart attack. Medicare hopes these lump sum payments will lead to lower costs, but a study shows it hasn't worked, particularly for complex disease conditions. But they'll keep trying. Medicare is expected to go bust in 2026, just 7 years from now.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly E-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
I saw a strange car in your driveway this morning. They sat there a minute and then drove away.
Miss Betty lived just down the street. She had a heart for our neighborhood, especially our children.
Tell Sarah and Ethan to be careful.
Miss Betty would have loved 1millionmoms.com. 1 Million Moms keeps an eye on a much larger neighborhood, mainly the TV shows and movies our children are exposed to. Learn how you can help at 1millionmoms.com.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
My story begins with debt, a lot of debt, credit card debt, and I heard a commercial for Trinity. I gave them a call.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
When I first called, I was a little embarrassed and kind of ashamed, and I looked at the numbers and I saw how quickly that astronomical debt that was in my life would go away.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
What I would tell other people, please pick up the phone and call Trinity. Just let them put together a program and see how affordable and easy it is to pay off your debt.
Call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813. That's 1-800-788-1813.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome back to the last segment of Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of the fastest 60 minutes in American media on the home stretch. Talking about Louis Farrakhan. I think tomorrow we're going to try to get the actual audio. We have a big-brained mammal in the studio with us here. Rob Gardner already had it in his the work that he prepared already. So we're going to trim it down tomorrow and get just the stuff that I want you to hear Farrakhan saying. So this will give you just kind of a sneak preview. But here's Farrakhan saying that Jesus was 2,000. His job was to come to earth and end Jewish civilization. That was the job of Jesus. He didn't get it done. The Jews killed him before he got it done. So Louis Farrakhan saying, look, I've come basically to finish the job that Jesus didn't complete. And Jesus said, according to Farrakhan, Jesus knew he was getting toward the end, but he gave his life for the truth until the one that he prefigured came into existence. So who is the one that Jesus Christ prefigured? Well, Louis Farrakhan says, I represent the Messiah. I represent the Jesus, and I am that Jesus. If I am not, then take my life. So Louis Farrakhan, man, that's kind of a dangerous thing to say. You know, somebody might wind up taking him up on that. So anyway, we'll get the audio of that tomorrow. All right, and every once in a while, we've had some somber news here today, but every once in a while you come across a story, man, just warms the cockles of your heart. I have no idea what the cockles of the heart are. I don't have clue one, but I know it's a place in your heart that can get warm.
Yep.
And this story will do it. Listen to this.
Yeah, the Read Report today is from a single mother of 3, Crystal Joe Preston, lives in Nevada. She's been facing some pretty difficult financial times, and her 13-year-old son decided to do something. He took it up on himself that he was going to get her a car. So basically what he did was saw a cheap 1999 Chevrolet Metro listed for sale on Facebook, and he went over to the house and asked the owner if he could trade his Xbox and some yard work for it. And at first the lady thought he was joking, but he persisted, and he ended, I don't know how much yard work this is going to entail, but he ended up coming home with a car for his mother.
Wow, isn't that cool?
So
13 years old?
Yeah, walked in with the title and the keys and handed it to her. And
cool deal.
There's no story in here on how he got the car to his mother. I'm assuming that the seller drove it over for him. But Mom said, "I'm so proud of my son. He's such a good kid. He may have his days, but what 13-year-old that buys his mom a car?
Yeah.
William, I love you, son. Thank you. You have such a big heart, and I love you."
Great story. Yeah. Great story. Well, Bible says honor your father and mother, and that's exactly why. You want to think about a mom that feels honored today by her son. That's it right there.
And you think about this, for a 13-year-old that maybe the family doesn't have very much money, if he has an Xbox, that's probably his most prized possession. So that
probably
sells
the toughest
a lot.
thing for him to give in exchange.
Yeah, amen.
All right, well, let's get to some clips here real quickly. By the way, here's your global warming scam, sham, and hoax alert. Headline from weather.com: intense storm to bring heavy snow, high winds, potential blizzard conditions to the plains and the upper Midwest. Says there is a potential for a historic April blizzard in the northern plains. There's a great glacier up in Greenland. Everybody talks about this. This is the big glacier that's supposed to be the signal for whether the climate of the earth is healthy or not, and this glacier has been retreating for a couple of years. And everybody says, this is it. This is a sign of the end. We only got 12 years. Look, it's one of the biggest glaciers in the world, and it is melting so fast you can see it before your very eyes. Now, however, the same glacier is growing at the same rate that it had been receding for the last 2 years. So it's now getting larger at the same rate by which it was shrinking. Now, the interesting thing to me is that who's this box guy that's doing this story? Some kind of an expert on the weather. He's a geological survey with the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland, and he says, look, this is arguably the most important Greenland glacier because it discharges the most ice in the northern hemisphere. For all of Greenland, it's king. So this is the king glacier in Greenland, and now it's getting bigger as fast as it was getting smaller. And he said that a natural cyclical cooling of North Atlantic waters likely caused the glacier to reverse course. In other words, it's got nothing to do with global warming. It is a natural cyclical cooling of North Atlantic waters, and it coincides with a flip of the North Atlantic Oscillation. Don't worry about that. That's just a term that means that the Northern Atlantic alternately cools and warms. It's a natural part of the cycle of ocean currents. So anyway, that's up in Greenland. And story about the skeleton in the electric car closet. The coal-powered cars, in other words. I call them coal-powered cars because electric cars are powered by electricity. Where do you get it from? You get it from coal. About 40% of our electricity comes from coal. And the point that this guy makes is that electric cars are not good for the environment. Their batteries are terrible for the environment, absolutely horrible for the environment, because they are made of rare earth metals that are very, very expensive to mine. These rare earth metals that go into the batteries in electric cars are found in very low densities in the Earth's crust, which means that tons of rock have to be mined, filtered, and transported to find enough rare metals to build a battery. And this article says the energy needed to create them exceeds the amount of energy that they store during their lifetime. Wow. That's why they're more expensive. Takes more energy to make them than they can store over the course of an entire lifetime. So bad for the environment. Cobalt is another one of the ingredients. In 2018, 70% of this mineral came from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa. This metal, the cobalt, is mined by very, very poor Congolese people. And they work in absolute slave-like conditions that would be unthinkable and would be illegal, flatly illegal, in most other parts of the world. But again, environmentalists apparently don't care about the cost in human life that it takes to get coal-powered cars on the road. All right, let's get some sound bites in. This is just a little bit of just kind of a lagniappe for today. Remember, I have jokingly referred to President Obama as President Narcissus because he seems to be so besotted with himself. He spoke in Berlin over the weekend, and there is a 4-minute and 38-second clip put together by our friends at Grabian, nothing but President Obama using the I word or the me word. Well, I didn't want to force you to listen to 4 minutes and 38 seconds.
Yeah, but I had
so
to.
I forced Rob, the big brain mammal, to listen to 4 minutes and 38 seconds of it and give us about 48 seconds of it. Here's what Barack Obama sounded like over the weekend.
You know, it's been over 10 years since I spoke to a slightly larger crowd. When I was running for president, I'm as excited as I have been ever. I would also say, so I think, I'm looking at you. I would say than I do. I should be asking you, I'll make more like me and less like me. And the reason I say that is because I think, and I worry sometimes, and I don't have, simple solutions, but I guess what I think the first week that I became president, I was in a meeting and I said, I'm the new young president. And I say, what advice do you have? When I used to come over for meetings, I'd be like, didn't I just meet with them? And I said to these donors, I said, look, my belief is, and I truly believe that. So thank you very much, everybody.
All right, so that is President Barack Obama. He mentioned himself in this speech 467 times. Wow. 467 times in 90 minutes he mentioned himself.
That's a new record. Right?
That's an all-time record. Now, let's go to clip number 2. Devin Nunes, one of my heroes. This guy's been a bulldog on this whole Trump-Russia thing, exposing the corruption and the deception at the heart of this democratic enterprise engineered by James Clapper, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, that whole cast of villains. But Nunes saying the research and the investigation they've done on the House side is bearing fruit. We've been wondering, when are people going to start pushing back on this? When is somebody going to look at Hillary's emails? When are we going to look at Benghazi? When are we going to look at the role of this cabal in starting this Trump-Russia investigation? Could start under Devin Nunes. Listen to this.
We're prepared this week to notify the Attorney General that we're prepared to send those referrals over and brief him if he wishes to be briefed. We think they're pretty clear. But as of right now, this may not be all of them, but this cleans up quite a bit. We have 8 referrals that we're prepared to send over to the Attorney General this week. All of these are classified or sensitive, and so because a lot of them could contain sensitive or classified information. 5 of them are what I would call straight up referrals, so just referrals that name someone and name the specific crimes. Those crimes are lying to Congress, misleading Congress, leaking classified information. So 5 of them are those types. There are 3 that I think are more complicated. On the first one is FISA abuse and other matters. We believe there was a conspiracy to lie to the FISA court, mislead the FISA court by numerous individuals that all need to be investigated and looked at, and we believe the statute is the conspiracy statute. The second conspiracy one is involving manipulation of intelligence. That also could ensnarl many Americans.
Okay, so Devin Nunes, and when he talks about these referrals, he's talking about criminal referrals. So they're going to send 8 criminal referrals to the DOJ. Remember, the House of Representatives can't indict anybody. That's the business of the Department of Justice. So these are criminal referrals to the DOJ and the FBI. Look, we think there's a crime here. We think these are the people that are responsible for it based on our investigation. We are referring it to you for follow-up. So there very well could be some criminal indictments that come out of this. So finally, maybe we are going to see some pushback against the corruption and against this coup d'etat against President Trump. Clip number 3, here's Adam Schiff. This guy just does not quit. Let's listen.
How do you respond to the suggestion made by every Republican on your committee, they've called for you to step down, that you going out there before this report came out and saying that there's evidence of collusion, and then Mueller comes out and says, we don't find any evidence of conspiracy or even coordination, that what you're saying and what you said is irresponsible because you're kind of muddying the waters. There is a standard that Mueller has, and then you have a different standard, and maybe people got confused, and maybe Democrats got their hopes up.
Look, I think there is a different standard here between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans seem to think that as long as you can't prove it's a crime, then all is fair in love and war.
You know, and what Adam Schiff doesn't seem to realize or think is that the only thing that a special counsel is allowed to investigate is a crime. He can't refer anything else. In other words, there's supposed to be a crime that he investigates, and if he finds something, then you refer it. So Adam Schiff just not going to give up on this deal. Now, we played a little bit of President Obama. I want to play a little bit of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Hillary Clinton, kind of back-to-back. Hate to subject you to it. I saved it for the end, so most of your lunch by now will have had an opportunity to digest. But the question is, which of these 2 women has the most authentic fake Southern accent? Now, here is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing her Southern accent.
I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat.
Oh, good grief. So that's the notorious AOC. Now let's stack that up against Hillary Clinton, and you can vote in your own mind. Who do you think has got the best fake, authentic Southern accent?
Don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Okay. Oh, wow. Well, that's a tough pick, but I think there's no question. I have to give Hillary the vote for the worst fake Southern accent.
That was horrible.
Going, that was pretty bad.
By the way, one more time, happy birthday, Brian.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it very much. Got a couple of Marco Polos from my son this morning for a little happy birthday greeting, and that was
you got one from me too.
Cool thing. Yep, got one from Rob Gardner wishing me a happy birthday. I think birthday Dave Dabney. He comes to a lot of our share-a-thons. He can tell you what day of the week you were born on. You give him your birthday, and he'll tell you exactly what day of the week you were born on. Well, that's it for today. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap, and never forget, we are fighting a winnable war.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Abraham Hamilton III.
If you really want to see the tides turning in our country, can I challenge you and encourage you? If the Lord could grab a hold of us in our family, you would see the tide in our politics turn.
The Hamilton Quarter, weekday afternoons at 5 Central on American Family Radio.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. U.S. Secret Service Director Randolph Tex Alice is expected to leave the Trump administration. Alice's departure reportedly stems from what's being described as a personality conflict within the agency. Sources tell the Associated Press this has nothing to do with a recent security breach at the president's private club in Florida. It's also said to be unrelated to the resignation of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. She, by the way, addressed reporters today outside her home in Alexandria, Virginia.
I share the president's goal of securing the border. I will continue to support all efforts to address the humanitarian and security crisis on the border. And other than that, I'm on my way to keep doing what I can for the next few days.
Nielsen's resignation comes as the president has expressed frustration with the number of migrants attempting to enter the U.S. southern border illegally. The Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection will now serve as acting head of the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats feel the burn. That's evidenced by the fact that independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont is surpassing his rivals in early fundraising and establishing himself as an indisputable